The diner was silent for a moment, so strange that even the blinking neon sign outside seemed to pause. Plates froze midair, forks stopped before lips, and every heartbeat inside the Smoky Eagle diner felt like a drum. It happened so fast nobody understood it at first. A young boy in a designer jacket, golden watch flashing, leaned forward and spat on the wrinkled hands of an old waitress who had just served him his food. She stood there trembling, while the spit slid down her fingers like a cruel insult made visible. The moment shattered something fragile in the air. No one breathed, nobody moved. People stared and whispered, horrified that someone so young could hold so much arrogance, and so little compassion. But what the boy didn't see, while he smirked like a king on a velvet throne, was the group of bikers sitting at the corner booth, watching everything like wolves disguised in leather and patience, backhand index pointing right if you believe in kindness, second chances, and respecting people from every walk of life. Please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that inspire compassion. Her name was Maggie Thompson, a woman older than the plates she carried every day. She had worked at the diner for 40 years, through winters that cracked her skin and summers that reminded her of the dreams she once had. Her husband had died of cancer, her son had moved to another state searching for work, and the diner was her only world. She didn't care about money. She cared about staying busy so she didn't sit alone with the memories. Her faded apron, her careful steps, her shy smile, everything about her told a story of a woman surviving quietly. People loved her for her gentle way of remembering every customer's favorite meal and leaving extra napkins for the messy ones. But today, fate had placed a test in front of her. The rich teenager, whose name was Dylan, didn't see Maggie's years of struggle, the ache in her bones, the nights she fell asleep sitting in a chair because her legs hurt too badly to reach her bed. All he saw was someone beneath him. His parents bought him everything: fast cars, expensive clothes, freedom without responsibility. Respect was never taught to him, only entitlement. The spit was the final result of a life with no consequences. Maggie didn't cry. Instead, she stood there frozen, her hands shaking. Not because of fear, but because of something deeper, a sadness that felt older than she was. She whispered a soft apology even though she had done nothing wrong, then turned away, hiding the humiliation behind a brittle smile. The diner remained silent as she walked toward the kitchen, each step feeling heavier than her tray. At the corner, the bikers watched, huge men with rough beards, leather jackets covered in patches that carried stories of road miles, broken bones, and brotherhood. They were regulars, though people rarely talked to them. Their presence was quiet, respectful. They always tipped well. They always addressed Maggie as ma'am, despite being men feared on the highways. Their leader, known as Hawk, stood slowly. His boots made a low thump on the tiled floor. Dylan didn't look up. He was too busy taking photos of his food, showing off his expensive plate to strangers online. Hawk walked toward Maggie, who stood near the kitchen window wiping her hands like she could erase what happened. Without saying a word, he reached out and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him with tired eyes. He nodded once, a silent promise that justice would come, not through violence, but through teaching. People braced themselves, expecting a fight. But instead, Hawk walked back to Dylan's table and sat across from him. The teenager glanced up, annoyed. Hawk didn't raise his voice, didn't grab him, didn't threaten. He simply began talking in a low tone, so calm it felt more powerful than shouting. He spoke about respect, about working people, about mothers who worked until their fingers bled. About how nothing you wear makes you better than anyone who serves you food. His words landed like thunder masked as rain, gentle but heavy. Dylan, at first, rolled his eyes, laughed, and looked away. But something in Hawk's gaze held him still, like a mirror showing a version of himself he hated. The other bikers joined, not intimidating him, but sharing their stories. One had grown up homeless. Another watched his mother clean offices at night. Another lost his father early and worked in garages after school. They weren't lecturing, they were showing him a truth he never knew. Worth isn't measured in money, but in the scars one earns fighting through life. Slowly, Dylan's arrogance melted, dripping off him like the spit he had thrown at Maggie. His eyes lowered, his voice disappeared, and his heart felt exposed. Eventually, Hawk stood and waited. The entire diner watched as Dylan walked toward Maggie. He felt something in his throat, something unfamiliar, humility. He stood beside her, placed a trembling hand on the counter, and apologized. Not with slick words, but with a raw, broken tone that sounded like a young boy finally waking up from a long sleep of ignorance. Maggie looked at him, and instead of anger, she offered forgiveness, the kind only someone who has suffered quietly can give. She smiled, touched his cheek gently, and said she hoped he would remember this day, not for the shame, but for the change it could start. The teenager left the diner different from how he arrived. He walked slower, like the weight of his own actions had settled on his shoulders. Outside, he saw the bikers standing by their motorcycles. Hawk looked at him, nodded once, and Dylan whispered a thank you. It wasn't loud, but it was honest. And the world sometimes changes through whispers. Days passed, and something remarkable began to happen. Dylan returned every week, volunteering to help Maggie carry dishes, mop floors, wipe tables. He didn't do it for praise. He did it because he realized kindness wasn't a gift, it was a duty. The bikers kept coming, always greeting Maggie first and asking about her day. The town noticed, and the diner felt warmer than ever, not because of the coffee, but because hearts were learning to soften. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of humanity and kindness. Speech balloon special request. Comment below what lesson you learned from this story. And so, the woman who spent decades serving others unknowingly became a teacher. Not in a classroom, but in the quiet corner of a small diner where a rich teen learned the value of respect, and a group of bikers showed that true strength isn't about fists or fear, it's about standing up for the dignity of another human being. In a world rushing to judge, this moment proved something powerful. Sometimes the toughest people wear leather jackets, and the bravest ones wear aprons.